Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Paul, I'm with the DiceyReview.com, and tonight we're going to be looking at the 2 to 4 player game City of Spies by Stronghold Games. We'll also be taking a look at the expansion for City of Spies, the Double Agent expansion, later in the video, and we'll put a timestamp so you'll know where to go if you're interested in seeing more about that expansion. The players will begin by setting up the game. To set up the game, each player will choose a color from the available red, green, blue, or yellow, and then take the starting tiles and cubes of that color. You can tell that tiles belong to certain players by these colored symbols in the top right of each tile. Each player will start with 6 tiles, and depending on the number of players, they will have a number of player cubes as well. We're setting up as if we're playing a 2-player game, and in this version, each player gets 6 cubes of their chosen color. The next step is shuffling and selecting 4 mission tiles from the common supply. The mission tiles will have a dark background, and they will be differentiated from the common tiles that you'll be able to place later. So you'll shuffle this stack and then deal out 4 face up next to the playing area. Next, all character tiles will need to be shuffled and placed in a common supply next to the player area. The character tiles will look like this on the front, so they'll look similar to the starting player tiles, but they'll have no player color in the top right. The back of the tiles will have a lighter color around the edge, as you can see here. Once those are shuffled, you'll place them near the playing area. To determine who goes first, the players will roll one of the included dice, and whoever rolls highest will get to go. That player will be given the first player tile, with a white cube placed on the first round to show which round is in play. Each player can also be given a player aid that will be placed next to their play area. There are 8 included location tiles. These will need to be shuffled and placed in a face-down stack to prepare for gameplay. There are dice and white cubes that are included with the game, and these will need to be near the play area just in case they come up during gameplay. So now that we've done all of this, setup is essentially complete. But we'll need to go over the location tiles in a bit of detail, and also the character tiles, just so you know what each tile will do and how they'll interact with gameplay. Now I've also placed a couple of player tiles on the table so that we can look at them in more detail. Some player tiles will have a specific player color in the top right. This indicates that this is one of that player's starting tiles. This number in the top left of each tile is the character strength. Each character tile will also have a flag symbol in the top left as well. This is the nationality of the character, and this will become important during gameplay and possibly in-game scoring. The symbols in black listed here are the special abilities of the characters. These once again are important during gameplay and possibly in-game scoring. The number listed in the bottom left in the metal is the number of victory points that these characters are worth if they are in your hand at the end of the game. We'll go into more detail about that during the scoring section. What you see here on the table is a 2 by 3 grid, which is how these location tiles will be set up on the playing area. Tiles will be shuffled and placed randomly, and the orientation may not always be face up depending on where you sit. So tiles can be placed in any direction just depending on how they're flipped over. Each tile will have a number of different spaces. Some spaces will be gray deployment spaces, and other spaces will be red, as you can see on these tiles here. These are known as reward spaces, and this is essentially where players will put tiles that they're trying to win during the round. Some location tiles indicate that they have special rules about playing here. This tile, for instance, negates a special ability of some types of characters. This tile will give a bonus to any spy that is placed here with a Great Britain affiliation. The number in the middle of each board represents the order in which these locations are resolved. So at the end of the round, you would resolve this location, then this location, then this location. You do it numerically. Within each location tile, there are also Roman numerals associated with each deployment space. So this determines which space is resolved within each location. So for instance, this location would be resolved first, and then this space within that location would be resolved first, and then this space and this space. If the words top secret are written in any space, any spy that is placed in these spaces must be placed face down. Some locations don't have the words top secret written, and in that case, the tiles will be placed face up. Some locations also have symbols printed on them with these eyes in the middle. These award players special powers when their tile is placed there. This symbol allows the player immediately after placing a character tile in this deployment space to look at a face-down tile in this location board. It's important to note that the reward tile can be one of the tiles the player looks at. This symbol with the 4 arrows to the side allows players to immediately after placing their character tile look at a face-down tile on this location board or an adjacent location board. It's important to note that adjacent tiles are tiles that share an edge with the tile. Diagonal tiles are not adjacent, it has to be orthogonal. There is also one tile that has a symbol like this with arrows pointing from all different directions. This symbol allows the player immediately after placing a character tile to look at a face-down tile on any location board, and once again you can choose the reward spaces to peek at. As I stated earlier, this configuration is how the play area will be set up during the game. We need to go ahead and mention how the spaces within all of these tiles are laid out. When looking at this grid, any space on the outside edge of the board is considered an outer space. This becomes important during gameplay. Any space within this section, these 8 squares right here, are considered inner spaces. Any space that is directly connected to each other is considered adjacent. So for instance, these 2 spaces would be adjacent, these 2 spaces would be adjacent, these 2 spaces would be adjacent, etc. There can never be an adjacent space in a diagonal direction. So similar to location tiles, these spaces also must be adjacent orthogonally. Now that we've talked a little bit about the location tiles and the character tiles, we're ready to go over what happens during the round. At the start of each round, the location tiles will be shuffled, and 6 locations will be placed on the table in a 2x3 grid. We've already done that, and once again, as you can see, the tiles may be turned in any different direction depending on how they're placed. The next step will be placing one of the character tiles from the top secret stack in each of the reward spaces. Remember, the tiles are placed face up unless there's a space that says top secret. So as you can see in this example, all of the reward spaces have been filled with face up characters except for this space, which must be filled with a face down character. After all of this setup has been done, the first player begins by taking their turn. On a player's turn, they will place one of their character tiles on an available outer deployment space of the board. So for instance, if it was the green player's turn, they could take an available character tile and place it on one of the outer spaces available. Once again, as you can see, since this space says top secret, you would place this tile face down. After that, a player will place their player cube on top of that tile. If you don't have any remaining cubes available, you can't place a tile for the remainder of the round. Now the red player on their turn could place one of their tiles face down, since it says top secret, on an outside edge of this location tile. Now as you'll notice, this deployment space has a symbol that allows this player to look at any face down tile on an adjacent location. The adjacent locations for this location tile are these 3 tiles. So this player could immediately look at this player's tile. Another option a player may have on their turn is to place a character tile on one of the inner spaces of the player area. To To do this, a player must control a tile that is adjacent and connects to an outer space. So for instance, this player could place their player tile right here. They would then place one of their cubes on top of that. Now, a player can place that tile right there because once again, they are adjacent to an outer tile. In this instance, there is a special ability that is placed on this location as well. Now, since this tile is face up, and this tile was placed by that player, they may not want to use that special ability, but if they do, it's there available to them immediately. Players will continue to place their tiles in this way until all of their cubes have been used. At the end of each round, 4 steps will need to be completed. Each location may have a special ability that will affect how that location is resolved, and then each character tile within the locations may have a special ability that will affect gameplay as well. The easiest way to see how these locations abilities and these character abilities take effect is to just resolve these tiles out here. So we'll do that now so you can get an idea of how this happens. The first thing that will happen is each tile, in order of lowest to highest, will be resolved. When we say resolved, we mean the strength of each character tile will be compared, as well as the special abilities of each character tile, to determine who wins the reward tile in this space. First, all character tiles will be flipped face up. Then, starting with the lowest Roman numeral, each character tile will be resolved. First, this character tile belonging to the green player will be resolved. This character tile has the Conspiracy secret ability. The Conspiracy secret ability allows a player to look at the top tile from the draw pile and the reward tile from this location. The player using this special ability may then place one of the drawn tiles on the bottom of the stack and the other in the reward space face up. In this instance, the player may decide that they want to keep the tile that's out there already. So this one can go face down on the bottom of the stack. The next tile to be resolved would once again be the green player. The Diplomacy special ability allows this player to choose a tile on this location board, including the tile with Diplomacy ability, or a tile on an adjacent board. The tile can be face up or face down, and what they'll do is they can place a white cube on the chosen tile. During this round, the character with the Diplomacy cube on it cannot be the target of an Assassin or a Seduction special ability. The chosen character can also be on a board that has already been resolved. The last character tile on this location to be resolved would be the red character's tile here. This character also has the Conspiracy special ability, so they can look at the top tile of the draw stack and decide whether or not they want to replace the reward tile. In this instance, this tile may actually help the green player if they win. So this tile would go on the bottom of the stack as well. Before we score this location tile, we want to pay attention to the special ability in the top left. At this location, there is a pistol with a line drawn through. This simply means that characters that have the assassination ability cannot trigger that ability while on this location. You can still place characters that have the assassination ability, but they'll only compare their strength or any other special abilities besides that. In this instance, the green player has the highest strength of 2 as compared to the red player's 1. So this tile would then be given to the green player and placed in their hand. The next location to be resolved would be this location here. Once again, all tiles are flipped face up, and any special abilities of the location are taken into account. This location gives +1 strength to any character that has the British flag affiliation. Now in this instance, the resolution would be fairly straightforward. There's only one character tile here, and it belongs to the red character. This character's ability is the Seduction ability. The Seduction ability allows the player to choose any character, face up or face down, from an adjacent location board, not a reward tile, mind you, and place it with its cube in a free deployment space at this location. So for instance, the red player could, if they wanted to, choose one of these character tiles to place in any one of these spaces. Now that wouldn't really help in this instance because red has no opposition. But what they could also do is take this player tile and place it in this space right here. Now that's a bit risky because this player doesn't know what this tile is or what abilities they might have. So I think that red would decide to just leave that tile where it was. But just as an example, if the red player wanted to, they could pull a tile from an adjacent location. After resolving the Seduction special ability, the red player, since they have the most strength at this location with 1, plus an additional 1 for the bonus, would then receive this tile in their hand. The next location to be resolved would be this location with the number 3. This location has no special ability, as you can see, but at each space on this location there is no top secret code written. So every tile on this space is face up. At this location, beginning with the deployment space, starting with the lowest Roman numeral that contains a character tile, the resolution would take place. In this instance, the first character tile is on the 2 space. This character tile has no special abilities, but it has a high strength value. This character tile would then be resolved. This character tile has the Nationalism special ability. The Nationalism special ability gives this character 1 strength for each matching flag on this location board or any adjacent location board. So for instance, this character tile would receive 1, 2, 3 strength from adjacent flags that match its own nationality. So this character would have a strength of 3. It's important to note that any tiles on adjacent boards have to be face up for this bonus to take place. In other words, you have to be able to see the flag that matches. After resolving this tile, the red player would receive this tile in their hand. The next location to be resolved would be this number 5 location. I'll flip these tiles to where they're easily seen. This location has a special ability that says all spaces on this tile are considered outer spaces. So for instance, if this location tile had this orientation from the start of the round, a player could have immediately placed one of their character tiles here, ignoring the adjacency rule on normal locations. In our current scoring example, the location special ability doesn't have much of an impact. The only player to have a character tile in this location is green, so we would resolve their character tile. This one also has the Nationalism special ability. So as you can see, there is 1 flag adjacent to this location that matches this character's flag. So this character would have a strength of 1. After resolving this location, the green player would receive this character tile in their hand. The next location to be resolved would be this location here, since it's the next highest number. All tiles would be turned face up. This location board is the casino. You can see from the 2 dice in the top left. This location's special ability is resolved after all character powers have been resolved. So we'll go ahead and resolve the character powers now. The first character tile to be resolved is the green player's tile here. This character has the Seduction special ability, so normally if there were an open deployment space, this character could pull another character to this location. Since there's no open space, this ability can't be used. The next character to be resolved would be this character from green as well. This character has no special ability, so no ability would take place. The next character to be resolved is the red player's character here. This character has the Diplomacy special ability, so they can once again pick themselves or a character on an adjacent tile to place a white cube on. Once again, this white cube indicates that the chosen character cannot be the victim of assassination or seduction. Now, this character tile over here has already been resolved, but if this player chooses to place this ability on this character tile, this tile can't be pulled by seduction, so this might protect from this resolution down here. After all abilities have been resolved, it's time to resolve the location special ability. At the casino, all players must roll the 2 dice that have been included with the game for each character they control here. The difference between the 2 numbers is added to the character's strength. So for instance, the green player would roll these 2 dice for this character. A 6 and a 3, there's 3 numbers in between that. So this player would then have a character with a strength of 4. You add the difference to this character's strength. They would then roll the dice for this character. A 2 and a 4 has a difference of 2, so this character would also have a strength of 4. So the green player now has 8 strength at this location. The red player would then roll the dice for their character. There's a 5 and a 4, creating a difference of 1, so this character would now have 2 strength. In this instance, the green player wins, and they would receive this tile in their hand. The very last location to be resolved would be this location with the 7 on it. All tiles would be turned face up. This location's special ability is once again resolved after all character abilities have been resolved. This character's special ability is the Assassin special ability. It allows the controlling player to choose a character tile, not the reward tile, from this location and return it to the controlling player's hand. So for instance, the red player could choose this tile from the green player and return that tile to their hand. This simply removes the tile from the location, not from the game. After the tiles have been resolved, the location tile can then be resolved. This location's ability states that if there are at least 2 players with characters at this location, the player with the lowest strength in this location must discard one of the characters that they control there. It's the player's choice. Now, since this character was removed by this character's special ability, this effect doesn't take place. Since these abilities have now been resolved, the red player would take this tile and place it in their hand. Once all locations have been resolved, players will take their character tiles back into their hand. The players will also retrieve all of their player cubes. After all character tiles have been retrieved by the players must then discard down to a tile hand limit of 6. The discarded tiles are placed in a face-down stack next to the player, and the remaining tiles left in the player's hand will be used for the next round. After players have discarded down to their hand limit, this cube will move to mark the next round, and then this first player tile will move to the player to the left. After this, the steps for round setup that we went over earlier will be repeated. Play continues in this way until 4 rounds have been completed. After 4 rounds have been completed, the game will end and victory points can be scored. For scoring, players will get 1 point for each discarded tile that they have in their stacks. The players will also receive the printed victory points on each tile in their hand. So in this instance, the green player would have 8 points for that. And then each player will check to see if they've accomplished any of the listed missions that were there from the start of the game. To complete missions, you only check the character tiles that are in the player's hands at the end of the game. So in this example, we would check any of the character tiles in these 2 stacks. Players will check to see if they have characters with matching symbols to the missions. So in this instance, players would check to see if they have any character tiles with the Seduction special ability. In this example, each player has 1 character with that special ability printed on their tile. If players are tied, as in the example that we've shown here, they each divide the victory points rounded down. So in this case, each player would receive 3 victory points. The next mission will award 6 victory points to the player who has the most German flag affiliations on their character tiles. The green player in this example has 2 character tiles with the German affiliation, whereas the red player only has 1. So the green player would receive 6 victory points for that special mission. The next mission awards 6 victory points to the player or players that have the most flag symbols or nationalism special ability printed on their character tiles. In this example, the red player has 2 characters with the nationalism special ability, whereas the green only has 1. So the red player would receive 6 victory points. Lastly, we'll score this mission. This mission awards victory points to the player or players with the most British flag affiliations. Once again, there's a tie between the 2 players, so each player would receive 3 victory points. The player with the most total points is the winner of the game. In the case of a tie, the more accomplished missions will break the tie. If there's still a tie, the player with the most total points from character tiles in their hand is the winner. If there's still a tie, players will rejoice in a shared victory. So that's all there is to the base game of City of Spies. We'll now go over the double agent expansion. Now we're going to go over the double agent expansion for City of Spies. The double agent expansion adds a few new things that will increase the variability and spice up gameplay. As you can see, this expansion includes the components for a 5th player, pink player. It also includes 2 new location boards that each have their own unique special ability. It includes new character tiles, some of which have a new nationality, and it also includes 2 new mission tiles. These can be added to the rest of the mission tiles from the original game. The first new location allows a player to rotate this location board after placing a character tile there. So for instance, if a player were to place a character tile right here, they could then rotate this location 90 degrees or 180 degrees. This could be helpful to create adjacency to an inner space. The next location gives +1 strength to any characters that have the nationalism ability and are either in this location or adjacent to this location. So for example, if this character were being resolved at the end of a round, they would gain +2 strength for these 2 flags that match its nationality, and then they would get +1 strength from this tile for a total of 3 strength. The next new feature of the double agent expansion is the double agent special ability. When this ability is activated, the player retrieves their character. After retrieving their character, they then place their player cube in a space of an adjacent location. So for instance, they could place their cube in this location. For the rest of the round, for all intents and purposes, the player who activated that ability then controls that character. That agent becomes yours until the end of the round. At the end of the round, after players have collected their characters, that ability ceases to take effect. And as long as this character hasn't been removed from the game, it's then allowed to return to the player who initially controlled it. Players can't use the double agent ability on characters that have a diplomacy cube. They're protected. And characters can also not use the double agent ability if there's already a double agent ability in play. The 2 new mission tiles add different objectives to the end-game conditions. This mission tile awards 6 victory points to the player who has the most double agent symbols in their hand at the end of the game. This mission tile awards 6 victory points to the player with the lowest number of discarded tiles. Lastly, I want to quickly mention the changes that are needed to play with 5 players. To play with 5 players, you'll include all of the components for the 5th player, and then in each round you'll use 8 location boards instead of 6. It will form a 4x2 grid instead of a 2x3 grid. Each player will receive 3 player cubes, and at the start of the game, 5 mission tiles will be laid out instead of the normal 4. Alright, so that's an overview of City of Spies and the double agent expansion. We hope that you've enjoyed the video, and as always, we hope that the video was informative. If you want to see more from the Dicey Review, you can visit our YouTube channel at the Dicey Review. You can check out our guild on Board Game Geek. It's listed as the Dicey Review. You can also visit our website to see our written blogs at thedicey-review.com. If you like listening to podcasts, we have a podcast. It can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, or Tuned In. It's the Dicey Review podcast. And once again, if you have any questions, please email thedicey-review@gmail.com or leave a comment in the video. Thanks so much, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.